Khan?
Okay? Okay?
I have most of my. Oh,
Okay? I was wrong.
let me just post it 1 second. Khan? Hi, everybody out there in TV land. Okay. Khan? Okay. So, a brief summary of where we were. We're at the third chapter of Rus, third of 4. We have this, just real quick.
Sure. Yeah. Not big time, because here is the lady.
Oh, yeah.
Why is it next to?
This is what I was told.
Okay.
Didn't you say down and this side is not
Okay,
different?
start again. Start again.
Not so far, right here.
Yeah.
Right
Start
here.
again.
Okay.
Let me put on that recording. All right. Once again, here we go. So we're recording, everybody. The first chapter of Rus talked about the beautiful story of the sad story of how Elimelech moved from Eretz Yisrael. He was a wealthy landowner from a very royal, prestigious family, and he moved from Eretz Yisrael. He went to Moav. The reason he went to Moav was a neighboring country. He didn't want to be among the Jewish people for 2 reasons. The good reason was it was a bad influence, and the not such a good reason was because he was greedy, and he was the only person with means, and there was a hunger in the land, and so he wanted to run away. Then, while he was there, Elimelech and his wife Naomi and their 2 sons married. The 2 sons married Moabite princesses, very prestigious women from the princesses of Moab. And they ended up staying there a long time. And in the next chapter, we learned how they came back to Eretz Yisrael because the 2 boys died, Elimelech died, and Naomi was alone with her 2 daughters-in-law. One chose to return, and the other chose not to return. Rus returned. And it was Naomi and Rus now in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, they were destitute and they had no money, and they were gathering, and they were dependent on the charities of others. And one person, whose name was Boaz, and he showed them kindness. And he was actually the leader of the Jewish people at that time, and he was extremely wealthy, and he was the head of the Sanhedrin, and he showed kindness and mercy to Rus. And that's where we left it. Now, Rus, for the first time, has a little optimism. She left her country, she left her land, she left she knows nobody. She came to a new country, and she's very poor, but she's extremely devoted to her mother-in-law, Naomi. And here we go, chapter 3. Vatemer lo Naomi chamaisa, and Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to whom? To Rus. Biti, my dear daughter, haloi, it's now time, avakish loch moneach asher yitav loch. It's now time for us to find a husband for you, someone that'll make you happy. Not all husbands are good for their for their wife, but here is I am looking out for your benefit, and it's a lot of sacrifice here for Naomi. Naomi is looking out for her daughter-in-law, Rus. By her finding a shidduch for Rus, it meant she would be all alone. She would have nobody, and it would also mean the memory of her own son would be erased, because right now she was her daughter-in-law, But once her daughter-in-law remarries, then what's the connection? But all of this Naomi did for the benefit of Rus. There was a real appreciation and love. So now, Pasuk Beis, Ata haloi Boaz meidaitonu, and our acquaintance, our kinsman, our relative, Asher hoisa esna Reisov, who you were with, Hayis esna Reisov, you were with his daughters, with the girls that were in his field. You know him. Hine hu zeira as geiren hasa'odim halayla, and behold, he will be threshing the oats, the barley in his threshing floor tonight. This is a very, very strange story that we're about to read, and it needs a little bit of context. It's a bold move. It seemed to be apparently some sort of an open secret that Rus and Boaz were going to get married. Whether it was through Nevuah or whether it was common sense, but destiny was happening here in front of everybody's eyes, and everybody saw it. But bold moves needed to happen here, because although in the previous chapter Boaz showed kindness and friendship to Rus, it didn't go anywhere and didn't progress from there. So Rashi says, Meidaitanu, our acquaintance, our family. He's going to be threshing the chaff from the wheat. It's where you throw the wheat up in the air and it gets separated by, the light part and the heavy part gets separated by throwing it up in the air. It's a manual labor thing. And Rashi says in Old French, it's vantir. It's actually a French name. You can go Google it. You'll see it. It's a coat of arms. Vantir is a French aristocratic name of, I guess, landowners or farmers. Halayla, tonight. Now, why? Excuse me. Why is Boaz threshing his own barley tonight? Doesn't he have help? And why is he doing it in the middle of the night? So he's doing it because Rashi says because Shahoya Hader Porutz B'Gneva V'Gezel V'Hoya Yoshim B'Greinei Lishmer Garnei. He had to guard his supply of the whole 3 months now of gathering the wheat. Don't forget, we're talking about. That's why we learned Rus right now, is because it happened in the time of the harvest. And Pesach was when they all came, when Rus came back to Eretz Yisrael. 3 months until Shavuos, they were gathering in the field, and there were all these festivals going on with the finishing of the harvest. And it was not a very nice time, tznius-wise and morality-wise. And Boaz moved into his threshing floor and guarded his stock by himself. And this was the opportunity here. And this is what happens. Virochatzt, and you shall, this is Naomi talking to her daughter-in-law, Rus. Virochatzt, and you should clean yourself. Visacht, and you shall anoint yourself with oil or whatever, some like ointments or perfume. V'samt simloi sayich olayich, and you will put your dress on. Notice the order. You shall bathe and anoint and put on a nice dress. V'yoradet, and the word actually, it says v'yoradeti. V'yoradeti means I will go with you. V'yoradet hagayda, and you will go down to the threshing floor. Al tivodi leish ad kaloisei lechel v'lishtais. So Rus was told, get dressed and make yourself very pretty, and then go to the threshing floor where you could meet, and then go down to the threshing floor. Rashi makes a big deal out of this order. First of all, virochatzt Rashi says, Pasuk Gimel, Virachatz, and you shall bathe from Avodah Mitinuf Avodah Zarah Shalach. Rashi says it's from the Avodah Zarah. How does Rashi know that it's from Avodah Zarah? Because he says it's a simple calculation. He says it's Virachatz, and you shall bathe. So if there's that, what's that and you shall bathe? That means it's an additional type, not a regular type of bathing. It's a special bathing of cleansing yourself from the Avodah Zarah. Visacht, and you shall also, anoint yourself, says Rashi, V'samtzim l'sayich, heim b'godim shel Shabbos. These are the Shabbos clothes. Don't forget, there's in Hebrew you say beged and simla. In modern Hebrew you also say simla, is a dress. And beged is an article of clothing. Simla seems a little more Shabbosic. Now Rashi's problem is what does it mean that you should put on a dress? Of course she should put on a dress. She's not without clothes, so it must mean that it's special clothes and it's Shabbosic clothes. What Ruth is about to do here is very, very risky, and we don't know which way. She doesn't know which way it's going to go. It could backfire big time, what she's about to do. And she's surrounding herself with merits and schusim. So the clothes of Shabbos and the preparing herself, cleansing herself from Avodah Zarah, and also the pasuk says, I will be there with you. Pasuk Dalet, Vayhi b'shachvei, and when it vihi, I'm sorry, vihi, not vayihi. Vihi means and it was, like once upon a time. There's vayihi b'mei Achashverosh, but the vihi, and it will happen. This is what Rus is Naomi is predicting to Rus. This is what will happen. Pasuk Dalet, vihi b'shachvei, at the time where he will lie down, v'yodait, and you pay attention, El hamokem asher yishkav sham, to the place where he lies, ubos v'gilis miragleisav v'shachaft v'hu, and he's going to be lying there, and you'll see where he's lying. Once you know where that place is, you lie next to him, and you near his legs. We'll get to that in a second. And then you will remove the blanket from his legs, v'shachaft, and you just lie there quietly. The who, and that's as much as you need to do. And here from here on, the who and Boaz, that is Yagid Loch Es Asher Tasin, he'll take it from there. Now, this is what you got to do. Now, okay, we'll get into this very strange story here in a minute. But what happened here is just the technical part of it. She lied next to him, not next to him in a provocative way, where it was clear that her intentions. She tried to portray that her intentions were not nefarious, I should say, not good intentions. She had a sneeze thing about her of where she lied down at his feet. The Malbim goes on here and says, what's this with the feet? And he says there's a whole thing about, he gives a whole long explanation about feet. There's a thing with Yibum. Now might be a good time to mention it because we're going to get to it in a few minutes. There's a tradition, there's a halacha that if somebody passes away, we talked about it in the past, when somebody passes away and he has no children, then his brother should marry the almana, and if she chooses not to, then there's a process called chlitza where she takes his shoe and spits in it and puts it away, and the whole shoe story, and so the Malbim connects everything here together. She's alluding to the fact that we're going to be talking about Yibum and Chlitza here, because here's your leg. What does the leg have to do with Chlitza? He says that when a person comes to this world and passes away with no children, he leaves nothing behind, and the neshama has nothing, literally no leg to stand on. Like you say in English, there's no leg to stand on. There's nothing here for him. And the Redeemer, the Goyel, is somebody that has to remedy that. So here, she's hinting to him the leg. Another thing is, where did this precedent come from? Where did Rus and Naomi get this idea to do this? Rus's Bubby, Rus's elder Bubby, was a Zaidi, I should say, was Loit. And Loit, if you remember that story where after the destruction of Sodom, there were the two sisters and Lot, and Loit didn't know if there was anybody else in the world. We felt the whole world was destroyed. And so there was this incest story that happened, and this was Rus's Bubby. So there was precedent for that. And this was Malchus Beis David came from here. The Rebbe talks about, he says, why is it that the Malchus Beis David has such a funny story behind it? We would think it's because we're special and good, but we're also not perfect. So if we're not perfect, and our royal family is not perfect, so we can relate and we don't feel distant. But this story needs deep understanding. But we're just going to read through the psukim and leave it to other people to explain the how and what. But obviously, it was in a tzniistic way, but it was definitely gutsy thing to do. Pasuk Hey, V'temer Leha, and she said, and V'temer Rus says to her mother-in-law, Kel asher teimri elai, whatever you tell me to do, even though this is clearly not an easy thing to do, I'll do it anyway. Asa, I will listen to you, and I will do as you say. And Pasuk Vav Vateired Hagayran, and Rus went down to the threshing floor. And when she arrived there, Vatas Kechol Asher Tzivato, and she did everything that she was told to do. Chamaisa, that is her mother-in-law, told her to do, to bathe and to change her clothes and all of that. Says Rashi, Vateired Hagayran Vatas, and she came down to the threshing hole, and she did so. He says the fact that he mentions that she came to the threshing hole and then did everything. Naomi's advice was, if you remember, in this order: bathe, an oil, and put on a nice dress. And then you go down to the threshing floor. Ruth changed the order. What did she do instead? Ella, Amra, she used her intuition and said, "No, I'm not going to do what Nami's telling me to do, because im ered kishani mikusheses, if I go all dressed up, very beautiful, and somebody will see me in the outside, they will see that you are a woman of ill repute, and they will think that's what I am, and so I'm going to change the order. I'm going to carry my bag I'm going to carry my clothes in a backpack, and when I get there, then I'll change." To the Geren, and then Achar Kach Kishtas Atzma Kasher Tzivat Chamesa, as her mother's advice gave her. Now, the Mefarshim make a big deal of this Rashi, of this story. What very, very Bruce was so wise. What was so wise about her? Apparently, her mother-in-law. First of all, her mother-in-law may not have realized how beautiful she was. Ruth was more conscious, and she felt that she it wasn't the proper thing to do for her to dress this and to follow those orders. And the other thing is that we learn is the Mefarshim say, "Ten lachochem vayach kam eid." There's a pasuk that he says, "You give a wise person, tell him what to do. He'll figure it out." Ten lachochem vayach kam eid. You give him a little bit, and he'll get a lot more. And then the Mefarshim say another wonderful thing that we learn from Rus is taking the initiative and changing the advice of Naomi. No, Rus may have had a doubt. Wait a minute, she's walking down to the threshing in the middle of the night, and she's planning, I should dress now or should I dress later? I'm going to change the order. But on the other hand, Naomi told me not to. So she had a suffix in her head. Should she follow her instinct, or should she follow the advice that never stirred her wrong? Naomi was clearly mistaken. She was wrong, and Rus was right. But how did Rus judge what's the right thing to do when she was in doubt? So the pasuk is Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem. We learn from here a wonderful lesson. If you're in doubt, it's you and God, not you and Rus, not you and Naomi, not you and nobody. It's between you and God. You follow God's wisdom, Reishis Chochma, Yiras Hashem. If you're a Yiras Shamayim, you can't go wrong. So she felt, I'm going to be tznius. And that will lead me on. And you take that, if you take that today, you have all these isms and morals and people teaching us all kinds of things, telling us which is moral and what's not moral, and we don't know what's right and what's wrong and which way to go. And there's all these causes out there in the world that we should get involved in. It's very confusing. So Rus says, the pasuk says, Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem. Follow God, and you'll be okay. And this is Rus, this beautiful lesson that we learn from this minor detail, that Rus changed the order of what she did because she had a set of values that's led her straight. Okay. Vateimar Elea okay. Pasuk Vav Vatered Goyim Vatask Chashet Tzivsel Chamesa Pasuk Zayin Vayechal Boaz Vayesh Vayitav Libay and Boaz ate. Pasuk Zayin Vayechal Boaz Vayesh Vayitav Libay, and Boaz ate and drank, and he was satisfied. Now he's not some. It's not like we'll get to the Rashi. He'll explain it. Don't forget, Boaz was a tzaddik. He wasn't just eating and drinking and whatever. And after Boaz sat, lie down to rest next to the inventory. And Rus came quietly in the night, very stealthily. And she revealed slightly his leg. And she lied there. There she was lying there. It's funny. He was wearing a blanket. We're talking about after Shavuos, is in the middle of the summer, in the hills of Judean hills. I guess at middle of the night they can get cold. But that's where they were, and that's what happened. So Rashi says, "Vayitev libay," and he was his heart. He was satisfied. Sha'asa Torah. Rashi's compelled to say that he must have been. He was happy because he was learning Torah. And the Mefarshim give a whole detail, because otherwise, who the other guy that was Vayitev libay? It was Achashverosh. Eat, drink, and be merry, and he was very happy. So obviously, we're not talking about somebody in the caliber of Achashverosh. So it must have been that he was Eisek B'Torah. Batove Balot, Benachas, quietly, that nobody should see. Pasuk Ches. Now, Vayi B'Chatzi Halayla, and in the middle of the night, Pasuk Boaz wakes up. Vayecharad ha'ish, and he was very frightened. Vayilofes, and vihine isha shecheves miragloisov, and he was grabbed, embraced. Rus embraced him because he was about to scream. He was very frightened. What is this next to me? Right? Vihine isha shecheves miragloisov, and here's a woman that's lying at his feet. Dum, bum, bum. What's going to happen here, right? So Rashi vayecharad ha'ish. Why was he? What was he frightened? What frightened him? So Rashi says kisover shade who bikesh lizek. Boaz was afraid that he encountered a demon and was going to harm him. V'hi achazei ulefafosei bizreyaseh, and he and she grabbed him and embraced him in her arms. Vayilofes, it says, as the word vayilofes, Rashi says, v'ochaz, and he grabbed her and he embraced her. K'mei vayilofes Shimshon. The story, the story of the word vayilofes we have by Samson. Remember the story of Shimshon Agibah when he was captured, and the Plishtim gathered him and they put him in a big building and they gouged his eyes out, and he was finally at Daven to Hashem. He says, "Give me one last chance to get my strength back, so I can get back on the on the bad guys." So he grabbed, that picture you have of Shimshon Agibah pushing the pillars. It's not right. He embraced the pillars. This word vayilofes, he embraced the pillars and pulled them down, just like the word vayilofes and Rus embraced Boaz. So it's you see a lot of biblical in the Sistine Chapel and all these things. They're so inaccurate, like the menorah and what's another famous one? Karnei Moshe Rabbeinu came down from the mountain with horns of light. It wasn't horns of light; it was rays of light. Or the Ten Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt not kill." There's no such commandment. Thou shalt not murder, but not thou shalt not kill. So there's Vayilofes, the paintings that are made of him. You'll see in the famous European paintings of Samson pulling down pushing down the beams are not correct. He was actually embracing them. Pasuk Tes Vayomer. And now, by the way, now he's no longer scared because he saw that it's a woman. He felt, the Mefarshim say, he felt, what did he feel? He felt her hair. Demons don't have hair. He said, this is a human being. And then he must have felt that it was a woman, clearly. Okay, so, but that was the giveaway, that in the night he felt her, and he was no longer afraid that she was a demon. It was because of he touched her hair. Pasuk Tes. Now, Boaz restrained himself and did not get close to her. This is one of those stories where we learn that Boaz, they could have gone much further with this. She was unmarried. He was unmarried. But like I said earlier, there was destiny to here. Everybody knew, a lot of people knew, it was an open secret that this royalty was being started here, and this is the royal family, and they wanted to do it right. And so they decided, Boaz says, no, I'm going to find out, we're going to get a chuppah and kiddushin, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Vayemer mi'at, vatemer anochi Rus amasecha. And here he finally asks her, what's the purpose that you're here? And she says, I'm not here for any relations of any sort, but rather for rasta knofecha ala mosecha, spread your cloak. Now, knafecha is wings, but clearly Boaz does not have wings. So the translation is kanaf is the corner of your clothing. Spread it over me like ki goyel ata, because you are the goyel. What is the goyel? Um, um, let's do Rashi. Uparashta knafecha. Kineged kanaf begudecha, the corner of the cloak of your clothing, l'chasesi b'talisecha, to cover me with your clothes like a chuppah, v'hu lashon nisuyin, and this is the terms that are used for marriage. Ki goyel ata, says Rashi, ligel nachalas ishi. You ki goyel ata. This is not that what you will do. It's a noun, not a verb. You are the goyel. Not that you will be goyel me, but rather you are the goyel. Pasuk test. The goyel. Again, let me stop here again for a quick second. We said earlier that Nami came back to Moav with no money and no anything, but they had land. You can't just transfer land. They had assets in Eretz Yisrael, and prime assets. Elimelech was very wealthy. He couldn't sell it. It must have been, the way I understand it, is when they came back from Eretz Yisrael right after Pesach, and they arrived in Israel. It was just at the harvesting season. There was the fields must have been fallow with nothing growing there, and they had to plant things. So even though they may have owned the land, they had no money. It must have been some sort of a shack on it of which they lived. But here it had to be redeemed, and the only person that can legally redeem it, the first right of first refusal, goes to the goyel, who is family member. So okay, Rashi goyel ato ligel nachlas ishi. You are to redeem the inheritance of my husband. As it says, Ba goyalei hakorev elav v'goel. The pasuk in Chumash says that a goyel comes and redeems v'goel chamoisi and vani tzriches limker nachlaseinu, and I have to sell our homestead, our property, because we have no money, and we really need to sell, and you're the one that has a right to buy it. Ve'ata alecha liknais, and now you have the obligation to buy this property. Knei gam oisi ima, take me with the property, a package deal. Here, this was a very clever thing for her to do, because now there were other people, there was other family members, and if she's tying herself to the land, so another buyer will have to hesitate and say, the land I'll buy, but do I have to get the wife with it? So they're like, so she tells Boaz, it's me and the land, and that now when Boaz later on tries to see if somebody else is interested, nobody else is interested, because it comes with the land. Okay. Ima sheyisker shem hameis al nachlosi, so that the memory of the deceased will be. Kishavel asada yemru zeis eshes machlin, and people will say when they see this field, this is the field of machlin, my husband, my late husband. Pasuk Yud, vayemer brucha at Hashem biti, and how did it go? Did Boaz accept it well or not? So here, Pasuk Yud, happily, vayemer brucha at Hashem. Remember, Naomi said, Boaz will take it from here, right? And he says, blessed be you. For Biti, it's somebody who's way younger than me in years. You came to me to ask me of kindness. However, this last kindness that you're doing now with for your husband, is even more kind than the kindness harishain that you're doing for your mother-in-law. Levilti leches acharei bachurim imdal v'im ashir. You could have had any man you wanted, but you didn't. and you are doing kindness to your ex-husband and to your father and to your mother-in-law. So for that, I bless you and I recognize the kindness. Min harishin, asher says Rashi, asher asis im chamaisecha, that you've done with your mother-in-law. Your Aleph, ve'ata, and now, right? I'm up to Yud Aleph. Ve'ata biti, and now, my dear daughter, although I am not prepared to make a chuppah here, nonetheless, al ti'iri, don't be afraid. And don't feel like you were distanced from me. Everything you want, everything that you desire, I will do. Because what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Ki yodea kol shar ami. Everybody, all the whole the Rabbanim in the Sanhedrin know ki eshes chayil ot, that you are a righteous woman. Says Rashi, no Rashi, Pasuk Yud Beis, ve'ata, Pasuk Yud Beis, ve'ata. However, now we're not doing no yibum and we're not doing no chuppah right now, and we're not doing anything else. Ki omnam, although ki goyel anoichi, I am indeed the goyel, the one that has the right of first refusal of your property. Because I'm a close relative of yours, and v'gam, and not only that, yesh goyel. However, there is a goyel korev mimeni. There is a relative that's closer than I am, and he needs to be asked first. I'm not first in line for this business transaction. You need to ask. I need to ask somebody else first. So nothing's going to happen now and right here and now. Ve'ata, says Rashi, ki amnam im v'loy kri klemer mashma safek vada yesh goyel korav mimen. There's certainly a relative that's closer than I am. V'hu vadai. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, clears this up in the Gemara, the family situation. There was Salmon, Elimelech, v'Toiv. Toiv is the name of a person. Achim Hoyu. They were three brothers. They were all children of Nachshon ben Aminadav. Nachshon ben Aminadav was the one that went into the Yam Suf first. Umahu asher lachinu Elimelech. So why does it say our brother Elimelech? He was not a brother, but rather Le'elam Keirei Adam as Deidei Achiv. It's not uncommon for someone to call his uncle as a brother. Ki inyan shenemar, as it says, Veish Avram ki nishba achiv. And Avram heard that his brother was in trouble. He was referring to Lot. Lot was actually V'halei Avram Deidei Haya, and Lot was actually Lot's uncle. Kacha Boaz Elimelech ben Achiv. So too was Boaz to Elimelech. It was called a brother, but actually he was a nephew. Krebi shel Machlem, a relative, a cousin of Machlem. Avol Toiv Haya Karev Yeser. But Toiv was an uncle, and he was actually a closer relative. Forget if you can't, keep up with the details here. The point is, Boaz says there's a closer relative to you, and I need to speak to him first. And we'll do that in the morning. Karev mimeni shehu ach, vani ben ach, and I am only a nephew. Pasuk Yud Gimel, lini halayla, stay here tonight. With lini halayla, sleep here tonight. Beloy, Rashi says, beloy ish. Without a man, but that's the point here is the Dagush here is on halayla, only tonight, below ish. Chai Hashem, he says, I can swear, and there's two meanings to the word I swear. Amar loi b'dvarim ani moitzieni kafats v'nishbala. So the Ruth says, you're telling. I've heard kind words before. I don't. It's hard for me to take it seriously. Who was he swearing to? He's either swearing to Rus to keep his word, and he's not like other men that don't keep their word, but rather he's going to keep his word. Or the other way is that he's promising to himself as Yetzer Hara, because there they were. This Yetzer Hara was raging. Boyaz. He says, "At panui v'hipnuya, boyoleha." Consummate this right here and now. There's no avera. But he promised himself he won't do this only with nisuyin. Again, these are the psukim of the story. Pasuk Yud Daled. Vateimer, and Rus heard the words Pasuk Yud Daled. Vatishkav miragloisov ada beker, and she lied by his feet until the morning, and in the morning Vatokum. And they got up early in the morning, before anybody was able to recognize them. They got up extremely early. And he said, "I have. You need to leave now so that nobody." It's like in the movies. You need to leave now so nobody recognizes you. Al yivoda kivo ha'ish hageiran. Nobody, for your dignity and for your respect and for my respect, leave before anybody sees us. Pasuk Yudal Rashi Vayemer al Yeida Vatakum Terem Yakir Huzaras Lakum Kiyomer Belibay En Kavedi Shieda Kiba Isha Hagar. Nobody needs to know what happened here. Pasuk Tezvav Vayemer Havi Hamit. And now also one more thing, Boaz says to Rus, "Give me your scarf." I think that's how it's translated, or a hat. Asher olayich, that's upon you, va'echaziba, and so that I can hold it. Va'teichazba, va'yomad sheish sa'idim, va'yashes aleh, va'yaveh ha'ir. And he took out 6 pieces of barley, and he gave it to her in her handkerchief, in her scarf. Vayave, and they together. He walked her back to the city. Rashi sheish sa'irim. What's the deal with the sheish sa'irim? Ef shalem sheish sa'in. It's not. It clearly cannot be 6 measures of sa'in, because she'ein darka shalisha laseis kamasis. A woman can't. It's not proper for her to schlep 6 bundles of flour of barley. It's literally 6 little kernels of barley. What's the purpose? So there must have been a purpose to it. If it's in other words, it means that there's going to be a son that will. It's some sort of a sign to the future, and the 5 signs are. Chochem and Novum and Chesed, etc. All the wonderful attributes that are going to come out of from your progeny. Tezvav Tezayin. Here in Pasuk Tezayin, Vatove, Rus came El Chamosa back to her mother-in-law Naomi. Don't forget, it's still dark outside because it's very early in the morning. Vatomer, and she says, "Mi ad biti, who are you?" Why did she not recognize her? Because it was dark. But Tagidla is kol asher asa lo ha'ish, and Rus told Naomi everything that the man said. Pasuk Yud Zayin, and Rus showed her mother-in-law the barley, and Vatemer sheish asaidim ha'ela nasan li. He gave me these 6 barleys, as it is. And don't think that it's not a good sign. It's a good sign that he gave it to me. He's not like he's brushing me off. Ki Omar Eli al Tovi Rekam al Chamaisech, but it's for you. It's not as some sort of a consolation prize to me, but it's a gift for you. Yotches Vatema Shvi Biti, and so Rus Naomi tells her daughter-in-law. Shvi biti, sit here in the house. Asher until Tidein eich yipel davar. Let's see how this plays out. In other words, it's out of our hands, and things are going to now happen. Ki lo yishkeit ha'ish ki im kilo hadavar hayom. This man, I know him. He gets things done, and he's going to get it done today. So we will hear the rest of the story. Now, that's the end of the story. But somebody asked me yesterday. You asked me, was it last week? How was it when she was gathering she had so much. Boaz was so nice to her that she was able to come home with so much food. So how did she carry it? So the pasuk says that she cleaned the bundles out right there in the beginning, and she was left with just the kernels. Anyway, that's yeah. What?